The first deer hunt is the resident junior mule deer hunt. There's two basic types of changes here. As you look down the unit group column, you can see that there's, starting on page 16, there's some units that are in bold. And again, those are primarily to accommodate the creation of new units that were done so to accommodate future expansion of bighorn sheep populations. The 251 through 254 was just to be consistent with other areas that included all the areas, all the units within the area. So previously 254 wasn't in there, it was only 251 through 253, and although it's extremely unlikely that anyone would encounter deer there or harvest deer there, in order to be consistent as we are in the other units, we just added that so it was complete with all those units in 25. The other areas where there's changes recommended for both the 2013 season as well as the 14 season is the ending dates. The recommended ending date for 2013 is October 27th, and that corresponds to the Sunday of Nevada Day weekend. There's been an expressed desire by the Commission to try to accommodate the youths on that Nevada Day weekend, try to include that weekend in the hunt structure. However, for 2014, due to the calendar shift, that bumps that back to November 2nd. So although it appears to be a pretty big shift on the calendar, both those days correspond to the Sunday of Nevada Day weekend. One potential complication with that for the 2014 season is that we have some areas within the state that are not a split season and actually end on October 31st. So we have a scenario here where we're ending an any legal weapon general hunt on October 31st, but then providing the youths 2 additional days, and that might be viewed with quite a bit of scrutiny.
Any questions? I'll take it out to the cabs. Rex?
Rex Flowers, Washoe County Advisory Board. Our board really mulled this over a lot. It was a majority decision. They voted to have all the archery seasons moved back from August 10th to August 1st, as it was a number of years ago. Washoe County, being the exception to the rule, is starting school now in mid-August, and they wanted to give more time for the youths and their families to be in the field together. Likewise, on the use with the any legal weapon hunts from October 5th to October 27th, they would like to see those moved to October 5th through October 31st to mirror the hunt 1331. Okay.
October 31st for both years, Rex?
Is that what it is in the next year? Yeah, that was the only change, was for this, it would be for this year. Yeah, okay. Because this year ends on, no, it is not for both years. It was only for this year. Okay. It was the 13-14 to move it to the 31st. They want to leave 14-15 alone. I think that ends on 2nd. So, yeah. And like I say, that's for family time.
Okay, thank you. Any other cabs? Corey?
For the record, Corey Laddle, Lincoln Cab. We had some of the same discussions as Washoe did on that date of November 2nd, at least for 2014. We did argue about it for a lot longer than we should have. It was kind of a split vote, but they kind of wanted to mirror that October 31 date. We threw out a couple options on the dates. On a side note, speaking personally in regard to the archery hunts, all the archery hunts, speaking for myself, in our county, one of the main issues we run into trying to start an archery hunt October 1st for the mule deer is we really like to give the archery elk hunters 10 days by themselves. We feel down there that a 31-day hunt running August 10th to September 9th is plenty of hunter opportunity on that end, but we also like to give those guys a chance to get some cow elk on the ground on the front end too. So that's just speaking for myself.
Okay. Ray?
At White Pine, we decided to go with NDOW's recommendations, but we did mull over the November 2nd in the 14 season. We were just undecided on which way we could go with it, so we ended up just supporting. But a lot of the discussion was a concern going past the 31st.
Okay. Any other cabs? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. Or any general public? All right, Clint didn't come up. All right, so I'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Rain?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm actually fairly much in agreement with what the department has proposed here. I do like the August 10th start date. I know there's been the one suggestion to move it elsewhere, but antlers aren't developed. There's issues with elk hunters. It's just too hot for meat preservation purposes. That's still something. I mean, even August 10th or 18th or 20th sometimes is a really questionable as far as retrieval of game and the quality of what you're going to end up eating at the end of the day. But the 10th is probably still a reasonable compromise on that. I didn't see any argument other than that. And as for the 27th to the 31st in this year, I'm torn either way. Thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Drew?
And this may be a question to go back out to Lincoln and White Pine, but I personally, and this is from just a lot of heat I've gotten from folks, have a problem not going through November 2nd on the 14 season, and I can understand what Tony's saying with the extension of the youth season past any legal weapons. So my question is, does it make sense? Or do you guys think it makes any sense, or did you have the discussion about taking any legal weapon to November 2nd on the 2014 to match it that way, so everyone gets an opportunity to hunt Nevada Day weekend? Because I know the people I talk with a lot this has come up in the past and have been extremely disappointed that a hunt ends on a Friday of a 3-day weekend with Friday being the holiday. So I was just wondering if you guys had any thoughts on that, because I think the decision we make here probably is going to set up 2 or 3 down the road.
Right.
For the record, Ray Sawyer again, White Pine County. We did discuss that, and that's why we eventually ended up going with the department's recommendations. But it's just a concern that, the late hunters only get 3 days basically, I think, to themselves. I think the direction, my understanding that the board was going a few years back was that the junior tags weren't really for the trophy part of the hunt. It was just for the experience part of it. So when you start dipping in November, it just, it's leaving the late tags with only 3 days, I think, to hunt. So.
Any other discussion? Oh, Rex?
Actually, when you get further down into it, in Washoe County, 1331, they did propose to move to a November 2nd to mirror the junior hunt, so that all things stayed, the same.
Mr. Dixon?
For the record, Paul Dixon, we also had a fair amount of discussion from the public that had families. They're, as you pointed out, Jeremy, very, very big on the ability to have that 3-day weekend to do things. And we didn't have any talk about whether the 31st, 1st, or 2nd put you in a trophy hunt realm of things. And to be honest with you, considering the warmness that we've had in this state when snow's arriving, the rut's not starting until mid-November anyway, I don't think it makes any difference. And I think it's a red herring to say and going to the second is going to affect trophy hunt for, giving kids an unfair advantage at that. Thanks.
Corey?
Yeah, similar discussion, and the way we kind of discussed is we would, a little bit different. We would rather see the youth hunt go to the second and let the 1331 hunt end on the 31st. It's funny, I was here, we did the same thing in our CAB meeting. We had guys arguing about the right for youth to get every extra weekend they can during the elk, on that split, but then when we talk about running their hunt to November 6th, oh no, we can't do that, it's an extra weekend. So I would rather see it go to the second for the youth. If the youth, one bonus the youth do have is on that last weekend, if they're not competing with anybody else, chances of success on their end are going to be even higher. So I know we're split on this, but that's the way I
Anybody else? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission.
Seeing no discussion, I'll take a stab at it. I'll make a motion to approve resident junior mule deer hunt, longbow archery, muzzleloader, and any legal weapon hunt 1107, as proposed by the department with 2 exceptions. One being that all ending dates designated October 27th be changed to the 31st. And that's it.
Okay, we have a motion. Second. And we have a second by Commissioner Wallace. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed unanimous.
The next hunt is a resident mule deer antlerless any legal weapon depredation hunt 1101. It's basically within 1 mile of the Baker Ranch properties in White Pine County, and we have new season dates. This hunt's been on the book for years. It's just in conjunction with the landowner and his representatives. It's more of a targeted approach to get harvest at two different times with different deer present on the property at those times.
Any questions, Tony, on that? Any questions from the cabs? I'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Rain?
Move to approve any legal weapon depredation hunt 1101 as proposed by the department.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passed unanimous.
The next hunt, resident mule deer antlerless any legal weapon hunt 1181. There are 4 changes here. Recommendation of an antlerless hunt for units 043 through 046. This is a population that kind of mirrors the Lander County population in Area 15, where after significant habitat disturbance in 2000 fire season, the population has continued to grow. It's one of the few populations that's at an all-time high. We just surveyed over 1,200 animals in their postseason surveys, which was a record survey. And in anticipation of this population reaching carrying capacity or showing signs of being limited by habitat like we've seen in Area 15, the biologist has recommended a hunt there. We also have a hunt recommended for Area 6 and 2 units within Area 15. Area 15 in particular is an area where we've had the opportunity to handle a significant number of animals in association with our collaring projects. We recognized a year ago this time that we had some body condition issues in there, and currently with the winter conditions that exist out there, we're seeing some significant mortality, certainly with the fawn segment of that population, and potentially with adults as winter conditions persist.
Okay, any questions? Commissioner Drew?
Yeah, just, and I think, Tony, you hit on it right there at the end. You know, there's a potential to have some fairly significant winter kill in some of these areas. Are we planning, or are you guys planning to do flights in the spring in all of these proposed units, so we have a sense of kind of essentially how much of that problem may have taken care of itself over the winter?
Yeah, I mean, at a minimum, we'll be doing spring flights, and in combination with those spring flights, there's also ground surveys looking for corpses that'll be conducted in some of these areas, and there's also monthly aerial telemetry surveys and GPS collar data that'll give us a pretty good indication, and that's part of the intent of some of the collaring work that we're doing is to get accurate measures of mortality so that the values that we put in the model are actually measured values and observed values.
Okay, Commissioner Rain?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Several different questions here. You referred to reaching carrying capacity. What is the carrying capacity for area 4, 6, 152, 155? What is carrying capacity in relation to the population?
The carrying capacity is not a fixed quantity. Carrying capacities vary wildly as weather and climate vary. We had a population in both areas 4 and area 15 that were significantly smaller than they are now, with 87,000 acres of fire in the Simpson Park range of 15. We witnessed some significant growth to the point that area 15, each and every survey that is now done sets a new record for sample size. Population estimates in both those units are above anything estimated previously. What happens is when you have those good conditions that occur after the disturbance and habitat improves and the animals respond, the animals' population growth takes a trajectory, and they've both been on a positive trajectory upwards. However, in 2011, we have the driest fall-winter period on record. We handle 30 fawns in area 15, 20 or so does from various locations in the unit, and there isn't adequate subcutaneous fat on any of those adults to even warrant ultrasounding to measure the depth of the fat on the rump. And we had significant concerns last year over that. So because of the fact that the population varies, because of the fact that the habitat varies, because of the fact that the climate varies, we're constantly looking where that population is relative to the habitat, relative to that carrying capacity. And the animal's body condition is telling us that that habitat cannot likely support more animals at this time.
Continuing along that vein here, specifically with the units of 155, 152, it's interesting that there seems to be a large disconnect between what I maintain hearing from people that live in the area and that have hunt in that area, and hunters that coming in this past year, as opposed with the number of animals observed in that area and that stay in that area versus the stuff that you guys coming up with. There seems to be a very large disconnect, and I mean, it's not a little disconnect, it's huge. And there's several things that I've been trying to struggle as to exactly where the disconnect occurs, and part of it appears to be that some of the surveying might be taking place at times when the deer are moving through from other areas, specifically in 155, because that seems to be at least a somewhat transitory population. That's one theory. I'm not certain that that's exactly correct, but that's one that's been thrown out there by a couple people. But, it's interesting. You see a lot of people running out there trying to find deer where NDOW's numbers are claiming there's a lot of deer, and it's devoid of life, basically, as far as the deer population is when these people are getting out there. You're throwing a huge number of people against units out there where there's very limited deer populations. Yeah, there was some huge fires in 155 and 99, 2000. actually the next 2 years after that, there was still some fairly limited pieces, but there's a huge section of that area, basically on the map, people look at that, it's from the bottleneck to the north. There's not a whole lot of, deer population in those areas. It seems like most of it's generally in the center and towards the southern edge of that area, at least where most people seem to find deer. But the numbers, I can't conceive that they would be sufficient to, like last year, we tripled our regular buck tags and overall tags in that area. And now we're wanting to add doe tags to that. Seems a huge disconnect with the reality of the situation.
Any other commission comment? Seeing none, I'll take it out to the cabs.
Joe Krim, Persian Cab. We can agree with Mr. Wasley that our populations of deer on the east side of Persian County are doing good. We don't deny that, but we don't think that it's got enough deer yet to carry a doe season yet. We'd like to see it go longer before we get into the doe season part of it.
Any other cabs? I'll bring it back to any public comment. I'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Rain?
All right, we'll continue along that vein. It's too bad didn't have much comment, but my understanding from the cabs, we have Eureka County, don't approve a doe hunt in Area 15. And my understanding is there was quite a lot of discussion on that, and that was, well, it wasn't just we don't think it's a decent idea. It was what are you people insane? You just don't seem to grasp the reality of the situation that's going on in this area. You are indeed already, with what currently is happening like last year, destroying the deer population in the area by what we're doing. And this would further exacerbate that problem. It's interesting to hear these, statements that, about the biology of the situation, and yet we see no data. We really need to examine, as the commission, the data on this situation before we go ahead, especially, and put this further burden. It's interesting, one comment, out in Area 155, there's only a few people who live out in that whole area. I was talking to a rancher who lives, if you look at 155, he's about at the bottom of that shaded area there. Got a ranch out there named Mr. Colby, and you start talking to him about, well, come deer season, I need to open up a beer stand because they ain't finding no deer. They might as well open up a beer stand. That's about all there is to it out here. People turning roads into bug dust and trying to find deer and walking up in the mountains and making some very frustrated people is what it appears all we're going to do in a doe season on top of that. With all we're hearing from the department is, well, we don't think it's good, and we don't know why these deer are having these problems. We don't know if it's the habitat. Is it predation that's causing them? Is there too much of that going on out there? What is the real problem? Obviously, the department does not know and does not have a real grasp on this situation, and trying to cure it by killing more of the doe in the area is not a reasonable nor sane method for accomplishing the stabilization and growth of our deer herds. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Just one.
Commissioner Drew?
Tony, I know in 51, we had a discussion, we did quotas last season, and Humboldt had some concerns, and you guys, I think, we're going to look at doing some more intensive monitoring in there. Is that something that you're comfortable, you and Humboldt Cab will have a chance to talk about before we go into quotas, that you guys will have some more survey data and things that they had brought up during that time?
Yeah, absolutely. We did commit to dedicate more resources to the situation in Humboldt County to try to better understand. I mean, we came before the commission and admitted that was one area that we felt we could improve our understanding and data. And we did that this past fall. We probably doubled our survey time in there. We had significant coverage. We flew the peak of rut. And what we'll do is we'll wait for all the harvest data to come in, all the point class data to come in, and fly again in the spring. And with those data, we'll be able to sit down with Humboldt County. What prompted the creation of that doe hunt in 051 last year was a fire in the Hot Springs Range, and it was put forth by the biologist out of concern that there would be a significant reduction in available winter range for those deer. These recommendations aren't intended to exacerbate any situation out there, as Commissioner Rain suggested, that they're intended to ameliorate issues that these deer have with the habitat. And I would point to the harvest data, preliminary harvest data from this year for Area 15 in particular, with preliminary results in 91 and 95% return so far. Commissioner Rain referenced tripling of the quota this year. In the early hunt, we had 41% hunter success, and in the late hunt, we had 48% hunter success, which are pretty consistent with our statewide average of 42%, actually above on average. So despite the fact that some people don't believe there are deer there, hunters are telling us otherwise, and that's hunter-reported data. That isn't NDOT created data that should be suspect to any manipulation.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Macbeth?
I guess I'm going to reserve, my final judgment when we do quotas, but I think we need to set up the seasons so we have the option to, deal with the situation. But yeah, I think I just look at it as setting up the season is one thing, but setting the quotas is another, and we'll have more data then, and we can determine what we need to do.
Any other comments?
I tend to agree with Commissioner Macbeth, and since it sounds like there's no further comments, I would make a motion to approve any legal weapon hunt 1181 as proposed by the department.
I'll second it.
We got a motion by Commissioner Drew, a second by Commissioner Macbeth. Any further discussion on the motion?
Yep.
Commissioner Rain?
First, I'd like to move to amend the motion to incorporate the 3 suggestions from the county advisory boards, and that would be, the motion would be to amend the main motion to eliminate the two doe hunts in Area 15, be 152, 155, as well as the doe hunt in 051 and the hunts in Area 4, 043 to 046.
Hey, that was, you want to amend the motion?
Yes.
And I'm not getting
Yeah, and the, as the maker of the motion, I won't view that as friendly, and I understand some of the cabs might have a concern over that. And I think, again, my comment's going to be, I'm kind of giving the department a benefit of the doubt here. We can always set a quota of 2. If some of the data comes back, I will want to see some pretty good data, and I trust that you guys will bring it to us in the quota setting. So I agree with Commissioner Macbeth that let's have the tool and the option in place and then see what the data looks like when we do quotas.
Okay, so without the amendment being accepted, we're going to call for the vote. No. What's that? Yeah, there was a second. Yeah.
Motion on the amendment was not seconded, so.
The
amendment dies.
The amendment
For lack
wasn't
of a
seconded.
second.
Yeah, the amendment died for lack of a second, so the main motion is still on the floor. If there's no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
8-1.
Shocking.
Commissioner Rain abstained.
Couldn't hear it.
Or not abstained.